My research on working memory was primarily aimed at the interaction between verbal and visuospatial working memory. Most of the theories that are around argue that those two forms of memory are handled by modular systems with not a lot of interaction between the two. Whereas I was able to demonstrate that a lot of the effects in verbal working memory influence our memory for visuospatial working memory and vice versa. So that was probably the main contribution in relation to working memory. In relation to autism, I've probably already covered some of the main areas there. A lot of our work has been concerned with the autism continuum, looking for similar cognitive characteristics for individuals with high levels of autistic traits compared to individuals who actually have a diagnosis of autism. So there are strengths in cognition associated with autism, not just weaknesses, and we find that these extend across the whole autism continuum. And more recently, we've developed our own measure of autistic traits in the general population, which is becoming quite popular and has recently been translated into several languages. So that continuum to do with autism has been one of our focuses. The other focus, which I mentioned earlier, is to do with face structure and autism, and that sort of arose out of arguments that hormones play a role in the development of autism. More recently, I've been collaborating with researchers at the Telephone Kids Institute, and that's more to do with early intervention for children at risk of developing autism. Those interventions tend to focus on parent-child interaction and trying to enhance that early interaction in infants and older children. I think the highlight would be the work on face masculinization in autism. I think there had been some attempts to analyse amniotic fluid as a way of assessing levels of androgens that the fetus is exposed to, but I think that's a fairly iffy area because we just don't know how reliable those measures are. They're taken from just one sample of amniotic fluid, and the results are similarly quite spotty, not really demonstrating a clear relationship between elevated levels of androgens and the later development of autism. Whereas we realised that because the face and brain develop in really close concert in early field development, that the structure of the face might be influenced by those hormones. And that's what we've been able to show through comparing the face structure of autistic and non-autistic children and also their first degree relatives. I think my main advice would be to really try to follow your main interests. That's what I've always tended to do. I've been drawn off into other areas that have interested me and have had a couple of parallel interests running at once, but I have been really intrinsically interested in all of the areas and tried to pursue those even when some of them were not particularly in vogue. So I think pursue your own interests. That would be my main recommendation.